Bitcoin's trade-off is security is paramount, and its trade-off is speed. Right? We need to have a long-term interest rate to allow us to store our money and be able to price everything off it. And it didn't have one. Then DeFi comes and we get one. It's mainly still in the shorter term, but staking is actually done longer term for different chains. So it was a shock how fast it's come. It's still not fully developed. We're still developing only certain parts of it. You know, we haven't even really got to the insurance industry, and that's coming onto this too. So how do I think about this and Bitcoin is, for me, Bitcoin has the highest probability of being the base layer of value. Value is probably the wrong word. Money. People get so confused over all of this. They think everything's in competition. They're not. Everything is accretive to a space that's going up 200x from here. And there's plenty of room for everybody. And all of these will go up in value. No, some won't, because some are not going to get traction. But generally speaking, people say, well, there's all these ETH competitors like Solana. Great. They're all going to go up in value. Will ETH be as dominant as it is today? No. Will Bitcoin be as dominant as it is today? No. Will Bitcoin be challenged in its role? Highly unlikely. Will ETH be fully challenged? Don't know. Possible, because it's a more open platform. So they're so different. And DeFi is a part of this. Bitcoin has been really slow in the DeFi evolution. But of course, if it's a base asset, it'll be built on in the way that we understand it to be. The Bitcoin blockchain is highly unlikely to be used for the settlement and custody of securities. Just it's not an effective use of that blockchain. But to have it as the store of value, savings, whatever you think about, and then to build DeFi on top of that, if I want to have my Bitcoin that I want to hold for 10 years, I'd love to get a yield on that for 10 years in a way that is secure and understandable. We haven't got there yet with Bitcoin. You know, we're kind of getting yield from getting it from BlockFi or somebody else, but that's involving us in another set of risks. So I don't think it's solved yet, but it'll come soon, and it'll only help the Bitcoin ecosystem when it does, because it's really important for these institutions to have yield, not just price. Gold has always been kind of pushed to the side by institutions because there's no yield. You know, you need like an app that says there's 3 layers of risk here: risky 20% yield, sort of risky 8% yield, not risky at all 3% yield. You know, idiot proof, because right now it's too complex. But they will get there. I mean, people are hiring, but still it's difficult for a pension fund who needs yields to get their heads around all these DeFi protocols. And we need to think of it differently. In the traditional securities world, it's really straightforward. There's US treasuries. Let's call Bitcoin that, the safest of all assets. Then what is the next safest? European government bonds, maybe? Okay, fine. Let's call that Ethereum. Well, then there's, okay, what are these other ones that kind of look like Ethereum, but are faster or better, i.e. may give you different features and benefits, but are riskier? Well, that could be Italian government bonds, or it could be something else. All you're doing is moving out of the risk curve, and you're having trade-offs. Bitcoin's trade-off is security, is paramount, and its trade-off is speed. Now, with others, Ethereum had the smart contract, which was its killer app, but it's now got it's a victim of its own success. So costs are rising, and it's not as fast as some of the applications need to be. So then Solana comes along, or Luna, and they're all trading off centralization, decentralization, speed, and cost. And that is very normal. Much like when we buy a car, we'll trade off those things. What do we want to pay for? What can we afford to pay for? What features and benefits do we want? So again, it's just not a zero-sum world. There is no, the whole pie is growing. So what you're doing is just wedging more parts of the pie in there as new high-quality protocols launch. And it's only attracting more people, because right now the securities industry can't use the Bitcoin blockchain. and they can't really use Ethereum. Could they use a layer 2? Maybe. Not really suitable. So they're waiting for what is the blockchain that works for them. Will it be one of these? I don't know. But so as soon as you start solving different problems with different blockchains, you bring in more and more people into the space. I was just having a conversation with Coy Sheffield from Visa, how they're approaching the space, what blockchains work for them. It's different than what works for somebody who just wants to store an asset like Bitcoin. So they're just all really different things that solve uniquely different problems. And a bunch of them will never get network effects because they don't solve a problem. Same as any other startup. I just think of it as that. The easiest way to describe it in traditional terms is when you are in a credit bull market, i.e. the business cycle is expanding, everything's okay, you own as little US treasuries as possible, and you own as much junk bonds and all the stuff that gives you high yield in price. As the cycle ends, you tend to go back towards the asset that is less volatile, which will be US treasuries. So where are we now? We're in the absolute guts of the bull market, as you keep pointing out, Will, right? So you can basically own anything, literally anything, Shiba, anything, and make money. Which one of these really have network effects? Which ones really have value? Well, that we're going to have to distinguish over time. Some of them, it's clear, right? Others, less clear. So at this point, I'm at maximum risk taking. Now, I don't know enough to really want to go down the kind of really speculative end of the token market because I just don't know enough about it. So I'm just picking blindly. So what I did is I took a basket of stuff to say, right, that whole bulk of alts is going to do well. Now, what's happened is it started with DeFi, then it's moved to these layer 2s. But it's a random game to try and chase, what's going to be the next coin that goes up. So I'm not trying to play that game. I just knew that the whole space was going to go up. I wanted broad exposure, and I had a couple of macro bets. And then I had the Ethereum and Bitcoin bet. And at this point in the cycle, if you're an investor and not approaching it from the philosophical point of view of Bitcoin, but from an investment point of view, you want to own less Bitcoin at this point in the cycle. It's always worked to own less Bitcoin, and that's fine. People seem to take that as like some huge judgment against Bitcoin, or no, I'm trying to make money. Okay, what am I trying to do? I'm a crypto maximalist. I think this thing is going to consume everything. And I don't really care how it gets there because my job is not to stay in one community and say, I'm fighting to the death. It's like, no, I want this whole thing to succeed because it's incredibly democratizing. It's incredibly powerful for the world. And there's different opportunities for different people in it. And that's fine. And if you want to dip your toe in the water and you don't really understand the complexities of the space, and it's super complex, go with Bitcoin. I have no issue with that. That's what my sister-in-law, I got her into because it's easy for her to understand. I mean, I don't see what's so contentious about this.